119-109. 119-109. Ugly scenes inside the ring, ugly scenes outside the ring at Eddie Hearn's show in Liverpool. This whole night is going to be remembered for that scorecard. The Polish judge has put in a 119-109 scorecard. One of the other judges had it a draw. One of the other judges had it to Martin Murray 116-112. So Martin Murray beats Gabe Rosado by a majority decision. That 119-109 scorecard is scandalous. And do you know what? Scandalous, but not unexpected. I was on Twitter as this fight drew towards an end. There seemed to be, on my Twitter, probably a 60-40 split, with 60% of people thinking Rosado had won the fight, 40% of people thinking Murray had won the fight. But of the 60% who thought Rosado had won, nearly all of them were saying Rosado won, but Murray's about to get the decision. Rosado won, but we're going to see the scoring wide in Murray's favour. But to see 119-109 is literally disgusting. Now, I was watching Tommy Langford, Kurt Cedars, so I had two screens up. I had this fight on in the background, but that was my primary viewing until that fight was stopped. So I probably missed the first 4 or 5 rounds of this fight in terms of scoring it. I watched it, I had it on in the background, you know, I was checking in regularly, but I can't say I sat down with a pen and paper and watched all 12 rounds and came up with a totally accurate scorecard here. So I'm not necessarily going to throw into the mix an exact scorecard. But my instinct, having watched 4 or 5 rounds half and half, and then having watched the second half of the fight fully, my instinct was that Gabe Rosado had probably, by a whisker, just done enough to nick this fight. And I certainly had him winning the last couple of rounds quite wide. I thought he came on a lot stronger. I thought Martin Murray was starting to tire. And I thought Rosado was on the front foot. I thought Rosado was bringing the pressure. And I thought Rosado was actually putting in some pretty decent work when he got Murray back and up against the ropes. Martin Murray, for me, put in quite an ugly performance. You know, there was a lot of talk from Eddie Hearn that this was going to be a fight of the year contender, that this was going to be an absolute war. Iris Tom said on the podcast the other day that I shouldn't buy that hype because when has Martin Murray ever been in a good fight? And to be fair to Irish Tom, he wasn't far wrong there. I'm not saying it was a terrible fight, but it certainly wasn't the blood and guts battle. Now, after the fight, Gabe Rosado is understandably disgusted, and he appears to be shouting from the ring at Eddie Hearn, 119-109. Murray's gone to confront him. Murray's pissed off. He's gone to confront him. Murray pushes Rosado, and Rosado throws a punch without boxing gloves on at Martin Murray after the decision. It didn't appear to connect from what I could see. Quite an ugly scene. Lots of security in the ring separating the two guys. And I presume there's going to be some trouble afterwards here. I don't know if there's going to be bans. I don't know if there's going to be fines. But I presume this isn't the last that we've heard about it. Now, Martin Murray, I must admit, bitched, moaned and winced throughout the course of this fight. And this is not the first time we've seen this in a Martin Murray fight. If I remember correctly, in his last fight against Lawal in Monaco, he bitched and moaned throughout the entire course of the fight. And I understand Martin Murray may have correctly been in the right with some of the punches that supposedly went after the bell, etc. But this is boxing. You know, this is a sport of trading punches, and Martin Murray was very lucky on a few times. You know, he put in 1 or 2 low blows on Rosado he could have lost a point on. Rosado may have clipped him a minuscule after the bell, but Martin Murray threw a haymaker at Rosado 2 seconds after the bell. You know, Martin Murray could have had a point or 2 docked in this fight for me. But he bitched and moaned and winced throughout the course of this fight, and I felt he should have been putting more concentration into his in-ring performance as opposed to whining and complaining to the referee. And, you know, that continued. He didn't like the fact that Gabe Rosado was complaining about the scoring, and he went to confront Gabe Rosado. To be fair, Murray may have felt he won the fight, and that's fair enough. You can make an argument he did win, but if anything, Murray should be supporting Rosado in that 119-109 scorecard. That is absolutely scandalous. You know, scandalous. And all the people who are detractors of Eddie Hearn and Matchroom and, you know, these sort of cards will be rubbing their hands in glee that a card like that has come out. Even the 116-112 card is scandalous, to be honest. But that will obviously be forgotten about given 119-109. I'm going to rewatch the fight and I'll score it, you know, with a pen and paper. But for me, as I say, I had Rosado probably just nicking it in a very, very close fight. And I thought Rosado was actually putting work together better than Murray. Murray did clock Rosado with some big right-hand counters, and, you know, Murray did land some eye-catching shots at times during the fight. But all in all, I just thought Rosado maybe deserved to nick it by an inch. But, you know, 119-109 is just how this fight is going to be remembered. Crazy. And ugly scenes going on in the ring. I've recorded this immediately after the two men were separated, so we'll have to see what more comes out of it and what post-fight interviews are out there. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, people. What did you make of this fight? What did you make of this scoring? Leave me your thoughts. Ryder versus Fielding, another ugly fight, another messy fight. A lot of people on my Twitter felt that Ryder was robbed and that Ryder actually did enough to win this fight. Again, not a fight I scored with pen and paper. I was going 2 and 4 that and a Tyrone Nurse fight on Box Nation, so I couldn't score either of them accurately. But my impression, having watched that fight, was that Fielding probably did just do enough to nick it. Quite an ugly fight. The styles really didn't gel. Fielding trying to fight long, trying to use his jab. Ryder getting low, southpaw stance, looking to bring the pressure. Fielding didn't really seem to adjust to that southpaw stance, and probably for me just about did enough to win the fight from Reigns. But it was an ugly fight, and Fielding for me looks to have regressed. You know, we know what Ryder is. For me, Ryder is a English to British level fighter at middleweight, and he's probably not someone who's got the frame, the size or the power to really be competing at super middleweight. And Fielding, I thought, would be taking care of a guy like John Ryder with a bit more ease than he actually did. It turned out to be a laboured performance and quite a close fight. Fielding on the way up, he was actually a fairly handy prospect. You know, I rated Rocky Fielding on the way up, but since that Callum Smith loss, he's regressed massively, as evidenced by the Christopher O'Brass fight, as evidenced by this fight. He just hasn't seemed to be the same fighter. On the way up, he was a lot sharper. He was a dangerous puncher. You know, he had a bit more tools in his armoury. So I don't know if that Callum Smith fight took something out of him physically, took something out of him psychologically. A lot of the commentators were speculating that at this stage, at this age, he's simply too big for 168, and that could be a possibility. You know, he's a very big guy. He's 6'3", and he's not strongly built. You know, maybe he's cutting a lot of weight to make that 168. And maybe he's not doing any strength work or any conditioning that he could be doing, which may, you know, maybe has led to a decrease in power and snap. I don't know, but it was an ugly fight. Jamie Cox sitting ringside. You know, I haven't seen as much from Jamie Cox as some people think. You know, a lot of people seem to think Jamie Cox is a world champion elect. When I've seen him fight, I thought he looked like quite a scrappy pub brawler. And, you know, I think I've seen better performances from Rocky Fielding than Jamie Cox. But based on tonight's performance, you know, a guy like Jamie Cox could possibly walk through Fielding, because Fielding just looked a bit fragile. He looked tentative and fragile and feeble. He wasn't committed. He wasn't hard-hitting. You know, all in all, this card for me, look, there were two 50-50 fights, if you like. Rosado, Murray, Fielding, Ryder. Both of them were competitive fights. Both of them were fights that could have gone either way, and it lived up to the fact that it was a competitive night's fighting. Neither caught fire for me. Neither caught fire. And the Box Nation card was by far the better card, which I'm going to cover in a longer and more detailed video that's probably going to go up in the next hour or so, so stay tuned for that. But I had to cover this one because I'm afraid all of the good boxing tonight on both sides, all of the fights, is going to be remembered by this 119-109 scorecard. You know, we've seen some bad scorecards. We've seen Burns Relic, Burns Beltran, Ryder Arnfield, Vargas McDonald. I mean, that was disgusting. But this may be the worst one yet. 119-109. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts on Fielding versus Jamie Cox. Let me know your thoughts on the Martin Murray Rosado fight and the scoring. Drop your comments in the section below. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button to support the channel. If you're new and you haven't done so before, please subscribe. Video on the Box Nation fight coming very, very soon.